Okay, so what do these eyedroppers do? Well, let me get a completely new curves. I'll let you in on a little secret. I accidentally left the color mode on for the curves adjustment layer instead of having it set to normal, and I had to re-record an entire video, so I'm being a little more paranoid about that. Going to go to my black white adjustment icon on my layers palette, and I'm going to choose curves, select that, and I have a brand new curves. Okay, so what do these eyedroppers do? Well, the black eyedropper, let me not double click it just yet. If you select the black eyedropper, at first it doesn't do anything. But if you click in an area that should be truly black, 100% black, there should be no color in it. So the absolute darkest point, let's see, probably there, and you click very carefully, boom. It pulls everything in to make that black. Not black with the blue tint or black with the green tint. It will recolorize everything to be black. And notice that we do in fact have a change on the red, a change on the green, and a change on the blue. And you can see I was off, because if this were truly black, then it wouldn't have clipped in. So let me go in to each one, holding down the Alt key. There we go, blue, here's green. So you can see, wouldn't it have been better just to do this? Well, generally, yeah. And let me go to red and not clip in. Again, holding down the Alt key. There we go. And now let me go to RGB, same deal. This should probably be in over here, but then that would adjust the tonality, so leave it alone. So this should actually be black. So it's close, but it's a little off. So it changed all the colors. Now for white, this will change it, so that should be white. Now this should actually be somewhere in here. So if I click on that, boom, colors corrected. And I bet if I go through, we'll see that it did a much better job. Sure enough, it hit some data and it stopped, hit some data and it stopped, hit some data. Oh, I was a little off on the red. Let me get in there a little bit. Oh, that might be correct actually, because we did have a magenta cast. So cutting in a little bit on the green would make more sense. Well, no, it's actually, I think I liked theirs better. I think that we can afford to get rid of a little red. Okay, yeah, take a look at that. The color is corrected more or less. So that leaves the black and the white. Now it's pure black, now it's pure white. What does this one do? Well, that's the gray, and this one's a little bit different. While these are bringing in the points, let me reset this entirely. The gray one tries to remove a color cast. So if I take the gray eyedropper tool and I click on this gray point, it did all kinds of adjustments, not necessarily on the black point or the white point on the red, green, and blue, but throughout the whole thing. So if we go to green, for example, it left it more or less alone. The blue, it pulled it down. And the red, it pulled it up. So you can combine these. And, this was pretty close. Click. And click to do some pretty easy, quick adjustments. Except, as I said, it doesn't always get it quite right. It got blue. So you're going to be hunting and pecking, trying to locate exactly the right point. Oftentimes, it's better just to, go in and using that Alt key to see where it's clipping. Get the preview there. You can do the adjustments better yourself. I think that looks better. All right. So you notice that I double clicked and it did something. This, if I double click the gray one, notice it's the 128 gray, the pure gray we're always talking about. That's 50% of brightness. This is what it's trying to set the gray color cast to. You can also add a color cast. Let's say blue. So now that blue, real quick, save the new one as the default? No. I want it just this one time. I don't want it default. So I'm just going to close it. And even though I didn't save it as default, until I get rid of this property here, it will still be blue, but only for this one. All right. In other words, if I create a new adjustment layer right now and set it to be curves, this curves will have gray. If I change the default, like red, and told it okay, it's like, hey, you want to save the default? If I said yes, which would be a mistake, then when I bring up curves on this new one, this curves 3, it remembered the red. So how do we get it back? Well, it's 50% brightness and nothing else. So tell it okay, make that the default. There we go. So that said, this second one will now be the default gray, but remember that one we said don't make it the default? It also forgot it. Haha, don't move off of it or could forget it. I'll tell it, okay, so we've got this blue. Don't save it as the default. I hate that so much. We'll go ahead and click on something that we know should be gray, and boom, it gives everything a blue because it will adjust those to the point on each color channel until it's that blue color. So that gray suddenly becomes a bright blue. If I click on this white, it's even worse. And I could do the same for the blacks if I wanted to add a color cast to the shadows, which actually is a little more common. Let's go ahead and reset everything. And that includes, our gray is now back to normal. Let's change the color cast on the shadows. Let's say that we wanted to have, actually it's frequently a deep blue, something like that. Don't make it the default, be careful about that. And now find the darkest shadow, click on it, and voila, it's got this blue tint to it, essentially. And you can clear up the lights. There you go. And so your shadows have a blue tint. Let's do the midtones. And there we go. So we have some interesting color adjustments going on. I think it would be better to have pure color, but hey, this has kind of an old-timey feel to the photography. So you can add color casts or remove color casts using the eyedropper tools, but it can be tricky. Just like with the levels adjustment, you'd have to know what absolutely has to be pure black, absolutely has to be pure white. And this is easy in some cases. If something has like a white piece of paper lying on the ground and it looks pink, guess what? It probably has some pink overcast to it. Maybe there's a pink window or something. Just use the eyedropper tool on that. If you have something that you know is pitch black, it's a little bit harder to find. Boom, you're set. In some cases, you'll know something's supposed to be gray. You can click on that too to remove those color casts. A lot of times, though, you do have to do the adjustments yourself to kind of get rid of some of those. Speaking of which, let me reset this. And keep in mind, if you have something like, say, a magenta cast in the sky, you can go to the opposite of magenta, which is green in RGB mode, and you can just add a little green and we'll get rid of that. But be careful. It will add that everywhere if you're not too careful. But guess what we have now? We've got tools galore. So if, for example, I smooth this back to nothing, I could go back here to our point editor, and let me clear out all these points. Go back to green, get the on-screen adjustment. Now, I can use the on-screen adjustment to get rid of that magenta cast. Pretty crazy, right? Pop back to RGB. Notice it didn't affect our overall luminosity of everything. It just affected that green. Luminosity is not the correct word. I'm sorry. I'm blanking out on that. It is the contrast, really, our composite. I left our initial composite alone and only affected the green. The reason I know it's not luminosity is you would have to go in and set this to luminosity. And if we clicked on that and just dragged it, it can affect the colors. Come here. See, well, yeah, that's orange, so that's an invert. So it's affecting the colors as well. So let me undo this. But you can get rid of color casting that way. And let's see, I wrote this down because I frequently forget past magenta, which is frequently a problem on a lot of photos that you'll get from online. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe someone who really likes magenta? Maybe it's an Instagram filter. I wrote it down here, and I immediately lost track of it. So let me get that for you real quick. Here it is. Red is the opposite of cyan. So decreasing red will increase cyan. Increasing red will decrease cyan. Green is the opposite of magenta. So increasing green will decrease magenta. Blue is the opposite of yellow. So increasing blue will decrease yellow. Increasing yellow will decrease blue. So that's about the secret. If you keep track of that, you're good to go. In fact, let me pause this for a second and I'll draw that right on the screen for you, or type that right on the screen for you. Okay, so increasing red decreases cyan, and the opposite's true. Increasing cyan will decrease red. Green, increase green to decrease magenta, increase blue to decrease yellow. Opposite's also true. Increasing yellow decreases blue, increasing magenta decreases green. All right. So that's it. So to increase magenta, decrease green. Voila. Pretty much that easy. So this is about what you need to remember for color casting, and you'll be about set. So where does that leave us? Well, That leaves us with the auto commands. I believe we've covered about everything else. Let's see. Presets, check. These tools at the bottom, check. Input, output, display, check, check. Update, check. The smoother, check. Pencil, check. Breakpoint, check. And then we've got all three of the eyedroppers now. The on-screen adjustment, yeah, that just leaves the auto. So let's talk about that in the next video.